Welcome to the channel, everyone. On this channel, we share stories of average Joes around the world and their not so average issues. Let's start with the first story. I convinced my friend for years to drop his crush on my sister because she would never like him. Now, my sister has to watch the love of her life marry someone else. Am I in the wrong? I, 26 female, just found out I might have ruined the potential love life of two people very close to me by letting my own feelings get in the way. Okay, who am I kidding? I didn't just find out. I think I always was conscious on a level about my actions. For all you rom-com lovers out there, strap yourselves in. This is somewhat of a big drama. I'm going to call my friend H and my sister S. S is about 3 years elder to me and has always been a good big sister for as long as I can remember. All my family and friends love her. She's a sweet, well-natured person who can be a bimbo sometimes, but she's always been the well-tempered, better-looking one between the both of us. A fact that I'm more accepting of now than I used to be before. Yeah, our differences were a huge sore spot for me growing up because it always felt like I was in a competition with her. She was pretty and smart, and conversation and friends came easy to her in a way I could only imagine. While I was the introverted, geeky sister, she was the fun and outgoing one. Naturally, everyone in the school and outside gravitated towards her even if I was right there, and this made me insecure big time. Once I touched 13, the resentful feelings only grew worse as my thoughts began to shift in the typical teenagery pattern of crushes and boys and dating. The usual things we blame hormones for. My sister had no problems transitioning into this phase because she basically had everyone she met wrapped around her finger. On the other hand, it wasn't quite so simple for me. It meant I actually had to go out of my way and socialize. People didn't take such an easy liking to me as compared to S. I had barely 2 proper friends around this time, and I only made them through working on a computer science project together. Now, despite being opposites, there was rarely any actual enmity between S and I. Rather, S and I got on quite well as opposed to the norm for most sibling relationships at the age. S never bullied or made fun of me for my shyer tendencies, and I never projected my feelings of insecurity onto her. I would argue that she was my best friend both in and out of home. We would share clothes and accessories without much of a fight, and she would tell me all the gossip from the upper grades when we huddled under the blankets at night. When experimenting in the kitchen became her latest hobby, I would be the first person to taste her creations and give my most honest opinion. We shared a close relationship, and people often remarked about how rare and lucky that was. Most siblings grow up angry at each other with some or the other repressed issue. Our parents, too, loved us equally. Sundays were reserved for family outings and movie nights together. Making dinner at least once a week would be a dad and kids affair, while mom would chill in the living room with her feet popped in a tub of warm water. Anyway, I think you get it. My family has been largely problem-free growing up, and me and my sister were as close as 2 peas in a pod. So, what happened? What happened is that I met H towards the end of high school. He was a new transfer student who had just relocated here with his new foster parents. Yes, H was an orphan. News of his lack of parents spread like wildfire, and he was on the receiving end of many weird and sympathetic looks when he started at my school. I officially met H because of running into him at a local pet shelter that was hosting an adoption fair. I often volunteered at the shelter, so I knew my way around the dogs and I recognized the puppy in his hands as one of my favorite boys. I was curious, and some random wave of courage inspired me to spark up a conversation. Next thing you know, we're talking and laughing and bonding over a bunch of common interests. This sudden but pleasant friendship continued to grow on in school, where I introduced H to my friends and our after school activities. H was a great guy. He kept a stellar academic record and he was much closer to my sister in terms of personality than he was to me. Despite the unfavorable conditions of his birth and biological parents, H was a positive guy who liked to keep a room upbeat. So he got along easily with people, and it was him that drew me out of my shell so that I would have a sizable group of close friends by the time I graduated. Now, the inevitable happened, and yes, I fell for H at some point. We spent a lot of time together, more than what is usually considered normal for a boy and a girl at that age. He came over to my house quite a bit, and he integrated himself well into my family. I can't say the same. His family wasn't very fond of me at first because his mother was of the opinion that I was a dark, brooding mess next to my sister, and that I'd end up becoming a bad influence on H for some reason. She was convinced I was a bad kid because she had seen me hanging around her rat-tag neighbor's daughter once, so I tried to stay away from H's home for the most part. Meanwhile, my growing feelings for H were getting harder and harder to repress. I wanted to come clean and tell him that I liked him. Besides, I had an inkling that he might like me back because he had one day told me that he had a crush. But little did I know that this crush he was referring to was none other than my sister. While H had been sneaking into my house under the guise of spending more time with me, he had actually been taking the opportunity to be closer to S. S, of course, only saw H as her little sister's silly best friend at first, but H was determined to get her to like him, so he would often draw attention to himself around her. He would help her out with her household chores, strike up a friendly match on the caroms board when she complained about being bored. He would compliment her on her dress and appearance whenever she dressed up to go out. What's more is As seemed to recognize the advances and she preened under the attention. She indulged herself in a little flirting here and there, and it made me mad. S knew that I liked H. I had told her this secret many times, and she had always encouraged me to confess my feelings, and yet here she was. H soon confided in me that he liked S, but I had already predicted it. I was angry at him for choosing S over me, like most people, and I was angry at S for taking away the one thing that was supposed to belong to me. H would have easily fallen for me if he had just never met her. She always got the attention, popularity, good grades, and love. Not the love of my life too? So I did everything I could to keep H and S from getting together. Over the few months of H hanging in my place, H and S had developed a close friendship of their own, but I knew that if they hung out together any longer, they would cross the line of friendship into something more serious. I tried everything to make it stop. I tried to put distance in between them by never letting H linger around my home anymore. I tried to get S to start dating one of the other guys who had been asking her out for a year now. After many such attempts, I finally lucked out when H and I saw S outside with another boy, and I lied to H and I told him that that was S's new boyfriend. I told him that S had never considered H for a serious relationship, so he should also drop this crush on her. H was angry and devastated as he had been under the impression that S and him were going to date. He was confused as to why there was suddenly another guy in the mix. Now, I don't know why he took my word without any evidence, and I don't know why he didn't confront S directly about this boyfriend. Maybe he had been feeling angry beyond reason and had decided that the only way to save his feelings would be to cut off all contact with S whatsoever, take my advice, and get over her. This was great news for past me, who felt that this was my last chance to swoop in and present myself as a potential dating candidate. Only I didn't know just how deep S and H's feelings ran for each other. Looking back at it, I can see how compatible they are, and I really do think that they would have been high school sweethearts. H and I did end up dating post that conundrum, and S remained forever lost as to why H had suddenly ditched his attractions for her. In turn, she became angry and resentful too. What was supposed to be a sweet friendship between them turned into bitter enmity, misunderstandings, and cold shoulders. H and I didn't last. After the initial honeymoon phase, I found that we fought and argued a lot. It didn't help that he had this newfound hatred for S that I couldn't tolerate. She was my sister. S, innocent little S, never suspected that I had a hand in their fallout. Instead, she encouraged me to break up with H because she was convinced that he was leading me on like he had done to her. Several years and misunderstandings later, H and S still don't get along. Although H and I broke up, we continued to be good friends and he moved on to date girls more suited for him. It's a small town, and the gossip spread like wildfire when he got down on one knee for his present girlfriend in a proposal of marriage. I couldn't be happier for him, but I found S reacting to the news in a very odd manner. She locked herself up in her room and refused to come outside for a long while. While I managed to get inside, I found her unhappily crying into a pillow. When I asked her why, she said that it was because she hadn't been expecting such news, and she confessed that some part of her was hoping H and her would still happen because she had been in love with him all this while, even if she pretended to hate him to his face. I feel like my intervention really messed things up for H and S. I can't help but wonder what their relationship would have been like if I had not been meddling for my own benefit. Am I in the wrong? Am I in the wrong for defending my sister? A couple of years ago, at work, my sister and one of our co-workers got into an argument. I wasn't involved in any way, but from what I understand, the female co-worker got pissed at my sister for not being able to do her job. However, according to my sister, the co-worker was the one who couldn't keep up. She blamed my sister for her shortcomings at work and got upset when my sister called her out on it. Now, we work at a factory packing sour cream, and it's fast-paced. The co-worker had never really done this before, so she did struggle with it. She claimed to me that all she did was ask my sister nicely to help her out and that my sister said no. That's not what my sister told me. She said that the co-worker snapped at her and accused her of being the one that couldn't keep up and never once actually asked her for help. When I went to talk to the co-worker, she kept calling my sister an idiot and asking me why my sister was so dumb and stupid. I simply told her that I didn't want to get involved in their argument and asked her not to call my sister any sort of names in front of me. So then she called me an idiot too. Then I cursed at her with some bad words and told her to go cry about it, and she got pissed and stomped off. Am I in the wrong for defending my sister and myself? Am I in the wrong for supposedly gaslighting my aunt? First, Here's some context. I live on a thin piece of land at the front and wide at the back. So my house is far from the street and I take a long time to answer the doorbell. For this reason, in addition to security, I installed surveillance cameras and an intercom so that I could stop running every time the doorbell rang. Even though it's forbidden to park on the side of the street my house is on, for some reason, Ubers and other cabs love to stop in front of my house for breaks. And finally, when my aunt has to bring or fetch something from my house, she doesn't usually get out of the car and ring the doorbell, but instead stops at my gate and calls my house. By chance, I looked at the security camera screen and saw that a car just like my aunt's was parked in front of my house. I mentioned it to my mother, who also thought it was the same car. I couldn't see the face on the screen. We were debating whether to go out and see if it was her, and we decided that if it was really my aunt, she would call. After some time, the car left, and by a sticker on the back of it, we discovered that it was my aunt. That night, our aunt called and complained that we never answered the phone. Context: I turned off the Wi-Fi when I go to sleep, and she had already been informed of this, but she always calls at night via WhatsApp instead of using our phones or the landline. I was confused by what she said because no, we didn't have any missed calls on our phones. The Wi-Fi was on and we were in the same room as the cell phone. However, she insists that she called several times and that we were lying. Now she's super angry at us and telling everyone that we're rude and disrespectful to visitors and claiming that we are gaslighting her. Am I in the wrong for not going to check if the car really was my aunt's? This whole mess could have been probably avoided if I did. Am I in the wrong for getting mad at the girl I'm cheating with because she's got with someone else? Ever since I came to university, me and this other girl, 19 female, have been sleeping together. So, for context, originally it started out with both of us cheating on our significant others. We were both in semi-problematic relationships ourselves and found a break in each other. She eventually broke up with her boyfriend and told him the truth about our relationship. I, on the other hand, had made it abundantly clear that I was not going to break up with my significant other, regardless of our actions, for reasons that aren't super relevant. We both live in the same building in 2 separate corridors, but there is a fire door in between that you can see through. This brings me to the main part of the story. Basically, we both agreed, me reluctantly, that it would be best if we tried to get over each other. Our relationship was quite up and down at this point and not healthy for anyone. This girl then gets with a guy she knew from her hometown. The next morning, she comes to me and starts telling me she's sorry and she loves me, but she doesn't regret doing what she did. I was pretty mad considering that morning she was waking up in my bed and then going to sleep in someone else's, but I accepted it and moved on. She tells me she got the ick from this guy, and although she has plans to meet him the next weekend, she's probably not going to, and she promises she won't do anything. Subsequently, we essentially get back together during the weekend. The next weekend, I get COVID-19. She decides that she will go out with this guy anyway. She ends up bringing him back to our shared building, and I see them both go into her room. She sees me too, messages me and promises me she won't do anything. They sleep together the next morning. She comes to me the next day and we talk about it. I accept that she's moving on and I'm completely fine with her having done this. I did say it was okay after all. I was just upset she had lied to me. She then tells me she loves me and the next day we're back together. 2 days later, she's told me firmly that she's not really into this guy, and so my hopes are up that things will stay the way they are. We go out that night, he's at the club, and when I turn around, they start making out. I obviously see them and feel terrible. So I leave the club and wait for her to come home 2 hours later. We have a massive fight and both say some really mean things, but I can't help but feel like I'm not in the wrong. I mean, she kept coming back to me every time after to practically tell me I was better. I thought that this guy wasn't on her mind, but I would have been perfectly fine if she was honest about it and was not still sleeping with me. So, am I in the wrong? So, firstly, I can't break up with my girlfriend because of complex family issues, otherwise, I would. I'm not happy in our relationship. Secondly, perhaps I didn't make this explicit, but yes, we did agree to be monogamous, and she was the one who was ensuring that I once touched a girl's leg with my leg for too long and she flipped out on me. Lastly, cheating doesn't excuse cheating. I see and agree with what some of you guys are saying, and I know I deserve this, and my girlfriend definitely doesn't. I'm working on that, I promise. But when she tells me she loves me and this guy means nothing, am I still the a-hole? We hoped you enjoyed today's stories. Use the comment section below to state your verdict on the situation, express your opinions, and share some valuable advice.